Okay guys, today we'll be learning about microorganisms. Ugh, why do we even care about those things? Microorganisms are so small they're probably useless. Well, because a person's a person, no matter how small. In fact, microorganisms play so many important roles, especially for humans, that I'd argue they're the most useful creatures on Earth. So let's get started. There are two main categories of life: prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Prokaryotes are single-celled organisms, while eukaryotes are mostly multicellular organisms, but there are some exceptions. Some of the key differences between the two are that eukaryotes have a nuclear membrane and membrane-bound organelles. Prokaryotes are quite simple and don't have a lot of the organelles that eukaryotes have, like mitochondria or Golgi bodies, and their DNA is not enclosed by a nuclear membrane. So the DNA in prokaryotes is just floating around all over the place? Not exactly. The DNA is not caged, but it tends to stay clumped up in one area of the cell. Another difference between prokaryotes and eukaryotes is the shape of the DNA. In eukaryotes, it's just strands of double helixes, but in prokaryotes, the double helixes form circles. Also, since prokaryotes are single-celled, they have specialized structures that help them move, stick, or exchange genetic material. Okay, now let's talk about bacteria, which are both prokaryotic and eukaryotic. What? That's not fair. Everything should either be prokaryotic or eukaryotic. They're only allowed to pick one. Bacteria aren't special. Yeah, bacteria are just disgusting germs. Well, actually, they are special. Bacteria do a lot of good things. Sure, they cause things like Lyme disease or bacterial infections, but they more than make up for it by helping us survive. For example, there are bacteria in our digestive systems helping us break down the nutrients in our food, and there are hundreds of other ways bacteria help us every day. In fact, there are 20 bacteria for every cell in the human body. That means there are anywhere between 200 to 2,000 trillion bacteria inside every one of us. That's 10% of our body mass. Isn't that amazing? Amazing? No, that's gross. How do I get them off me? Will antibiotics work? You don't want to get rid of them, because like I said, these bacteria are very important to your survival. Yeah, and it's like having trillions of friends all the time, so it doesn't matter that no human wants to be my friend. Kelly, you mentioned antibiotics. Let's talk about that. Antibiotics are basically chemicals that kill bacteria. The first one was penicillin and was accidentally discovered by Alexander Fleming. Do bacteria live forever? 'Cause they don't have gametes. Well, they do what's called binary fission. They basically replicate their DNA and split into two to increase the population. But they don't just keep multiplying without control. Bacteria use chemical signals to talk to one another and detect the population density of their colony and adjust their behavior accordingly. Yeast love to talk too. They send chemical signals to find mates. Isn't that just so cool? Yeah, bacteria are so cool. They can talk. And they help us live. Okay, we get it. Bacteria are super important. Yeah, especially because they help us make food, like bread or alcohol. Food? 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 Yeah, remember the pyruvate NADH and ATP molecules that resulted from glycolysis? Well, one of two things can happen with those molecules. If oxygen is present, cellular respiration will occur. But if oxygen isn't present, alcohol fermentation will happen. In this, yeast cells make things like bread and wine with oxidation. Wait, so bread has alcohol in it? Well, the baking and chemical processes take a lot out of it, but yes, there are still traces of alcohol in bread. But don't worry, it's not enough to make you drunk, even if you eat a lot of bread. Oh. You know, food isn't the only cool thing that bacteria play a major part in. Nowadays, with genetic engineering, we can take DNA from one organism and insert it into another one. But how would that be useful? Well, we can insert a gene that produces insulin into a bacteria and insert it into a diabetic human. And the way that scientists get the gene into a person is really cool. Like in sci-fi movies? Yeah, kind of. To clone DNA, first the scientists have to obtain the gene they want. They do this by using restriction enzymes and cutting out the exact section of a strand of DNA that has the gene. They do this several times to get multiple. Next, they paste the genes into plasmids that have the right shape cut out of them to fit the gene perfectly. Then they inject the plasmids into the organism? Not yet. They put the plasmids into a vial with an E. coli solution and give it a heat shock to make the E. coli take in the plasmids. Then they have the organisms drink the solution? Hold your horses. They now grow the E. coli bacteria on a petri dish with some nutrients. Then they put the bacteria colonies in the organism's food and it eats them? Well, no, because not all of the bacteria in the vial took in the plasmids, so the scientists don't know which colony has the bacteria with the gene. So beforehand, they insert an antibiotic-resistant gene into the plasmid along with the gene and put antibiotics with the nutrients in the petri dish, so the bacteria without the plasmids don't grow at all. So now they insert the genes into the organism. Finally. Come on, guys, be a little more excited about this. Do you realize what this means? Just think about all the possibilities that open up when we can control genes in organisms. And with biotechnology advancing at an exponential rate, we might even be able to create bacteria of our own. If I could design a bacteria, I would make one that takes in carbon dioxide, uses the carbon gas for energy, and then releases the oxygen as a waste product. They could have endospores, allowing them to live in extreme heat, and we can put them in the silencers of cars and have cars emit oxygen instead of harmful carbon dioxide. And with things like factories and deforestation releasing all that carbon dioxide, it's not like we're going to run out of it anytime soon, right? Yeah.